Good evening. Rather nice being here. It's a while. My apologies for no live last night. This was due to the fact that, well, I'm totally honest, I was absolutely shattered. So it didn't happen. My apologies for that. If you were expecting a live last night, it's just the way that things turned out for me. We're trying something totally different tonight, and I'm just going to talk to the audience. Hello, audience. We are now live on YouTube, and hopefully this will resolve a few issues that we've had with the number of porn bomb attempts and stupidity, etc. For those people who are unsure what I'm talking about, I made a few mistakes in the past, and we ended up having a porn bomb and then some sort of horrible ice cream. So what we've done is created an audio-only room over in the Grim Reaper network Discord. The link is in the description. You will then have to, obviously, if you're not a member, register. We have people who will be able to follow that through so that you can come straight in. People in there will also be able to look at the chat on YouTube, but I will ask if you are up on stage that you kindly mute the YouTube so that we don't get feedback. We've got a topic to discuss when a few more people come in, and that is should the NHS use private companies to provide care? And I asked this question through recent experience of the NHS, the National Health Service. So I thought, I'll put something together and have a chat about it. So it should have happened last night, but regrettably it couldn't. Hello, John. Hello, Digital Denizen. Nice to see you. Long time no speak. If you want to take part, please, by all means, hop over and I'll show you what the room looks like in just 2 seconds. Okay, so here we have it. The new safe room. They can hear me. We've got 2 people there in the audience. Nobody wants to come up on stage, which is fine. If you do want to come up on stage and have a chat, all you need to do is to raise your hand. And for those who are able to see this on YouTube, raise your hand. There's somewhere down here. You won't be able to put your camera on, and you won't be able to share your screen. Now, the only thing you would be able to do would be to change your avatar. However, we have authorized mods, administrators, who will be able to sort that out toot sweet. Hello, Queen Ninja. Long time no see. Good to see you, Big G. How are you doing? And we've got Bear Britain. Well, it's working. Well, as far as I know, it's working. Let's have. I don't know whether people can hear you in on YouTube. Let's try that one again. I'll be able to tell as well. So, give me. Hello. No, don't forget there will be a. Yes, we can hear you over on YouTube. This could work, and it could so easily stop the porn bombers, because no one is going to be coming. Hello, yeah. You will. Yours will, yes, because you have administration rights. Yeah. But in order for them to come up, obviously they would want to request it, so they would just need to raise their hand. Now we've got DeWitt in the chat. If he wishes to come on up, we can bring him up. You can, and he can test to see. He doesn't have to speak. Just we will know instantly. Yeah, sure, no worries. This is a short. Well, you can't hear Bear. I could hear Bear coming through. Allegedly, Big G couldn't hear you. Big G, go into the audience and let me know, or alternatively, DeWitt, if you could confirm. Oh, right, okay, you can't. Interesting. I don't know why that is. Let me double check StreamYards a second. Make sure that I've got that shared right. So give me a second. All right, so we're back to straightforward. Share screen. Audio is sharing. Window, share, add to screen, and you won't hear me because I am talking to the people in both. I don't know. No, that's only for yours, for you. Right, so I can hear me. Yeah, I can't hear your echo, so it could be. Oh dear. No, I can only hear myself as an echo. I can't hear you coming through on YouTube. Neither can Big G. So it's got to be somewhere within StreamYards where the problem is. I'm going to try again. Maybe it doesn't like screen sharing. I think I may have fixed it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Have fixed it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Have fixed it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay,
can you hear me now?
Can people
Can you hear me now? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
can you hear me now?
Can people
Can you hear me now? Hello,
no, audio is looping.
Talking to myself.
Yeah,
can you hear me now? Which? Can you hear me now? Hello, no,
audio is looping.
Talking to myself.
Yeah,
can you hear me now? Which? Can you hear me now? Hello, no,
audio is looping.
Talking to myself.
Yeah,
can you hear me now? Which? Can you hear me now? Hello,
have you got
talking to myself.
Yeah,
can you hear me now? Which?
Do you
Hello,
got hang on a second, let me mute
myself.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
Do you
Hang on a
let me mute that.
Can you hear me now?
Do you
Hang on a
let me mute that.
Can you hear me now?
Do you
Hang on a
let me
Can
mute
you hear me now?
Do you
Hang on a Can you hear me now?
Right, okay, let's stop that. There's a loop going on, isn't there? Yeah, I'm gonna have to try and filter that. Let me know if you need an audio technician. I work cheap. Well, yeah, I appreciate anybody who works cheap, and it's a round number. Very round. My apologies. This does not seem to be working the way I wanted it to work, which is a bit of a shame. But you can hear me okay. And when I talk to the group, as in the audience, they can hear me as well. So let me try again. They can hear. Okay, there's a note here. It says, be careful sharing audio. If you have a guest, they will hear themselves. They're sharing everything you hear, including their voice. This won't happen if you share through a Chrome tab. You'll share the audio. Okay, from that tab. Oh, I've got to try and figure this one out now. Don't know whether I can do that, but I will try. It means I'm going to have to open it up, Discord up in the browser. Okay. That's a shame. I've got to figure out how I'm going to do that now. Right. I need to figure out how I'm going to do this because I'm not 100% certain. Anyway, tell you what, let's just do it the old-fashioned way, Bear. Would you like to just come on to StreamYards for us? We'll do it through StreamYards, and we'll have to play about with this and try and figure out how we're going to do it. Because I need to set it up so that everyone can hear. The idea is right, but it's got to be done through a browser instead of the app, which I'm doing. And it's as if I'm talking to myself. That's because you're using Chrome's webcast technology to stream the audio. Yeah, I figured that one out. Thank you very much. The most reliable way is to use OBS and loop into the Discord audio. Yeah, it's I'm trying to, yeah, I haven't got OBS. I don't like OBS. It causes a lot of problems. Okay, no problem. I'll close the Discord. Well, I'll leave the Discord channel, and I'll just stay on StreamYards, and we'll do it the old-fashioned way for the time being, because I should be able to figure it out quite easily. And I shall just disconnect quietly. Right. Because I downloaded the app, I think that's what the problem is. But anyway, thanks, Denison. I will figure something out. Snakes, how you doing? Brandon, good to see you. John, as always, thank you. No, start again. Big G. I've got GY Trucker in. I had to think then for a second. What was going on? Hello, Bear. Oh well, he's there, but he's not there.
Well, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah. We can do it, but we need to do it through a browser window, a tab. So I'm going to have to get the Discord link and do it that way. But it will work. Let me know. Yeah, thanks. Your PayPal link is on your channel. Oh, I do like Denison. I don't have a PayPal, right. So sorry. I'll figure it out. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I do apologise. It's not quite worked the way I wanted it to. So what can I say?
Trial and error, isn't it? Trial and error.
Yeah, trial and error. Yeah, I'm just going to try something else actually. Continues to Discord with a little bit of luck. Aha. I've got to verify via email. Oh, pain in the backside. Can't remember the email. I think that might be it. No, it's not that one. It's not that one. Right, I'll figure this out. I'll sort it out. Need to go into Discord to try and find out what the email address is. Right. So let's get on with a quick chat. We know that didn't quite work, so we'll work on that when I've got a little bit of time. I could. What's this? Technically, I could join StreamYards and route the Discord audio for you without even being a host. Lol. Well, Denison, I know that you are a master at technology. I'm still learning, and I've got to admit at the moment, maybe I shouldn't have even tried this today. My head is all over the place at the moment. So, yeah. Okay, so the question, right, all right. So I asked the question and regarding what should the NHS National Health Service use private companies to provide care? And Denison says, why not? So I'm going to explain some of the reasons why not. Why should a private company make money out of the National Health Service, overcharge them, and underpay the staff that they employ? And also, why should a private company be allowed to operate equipment which has been bought by the National Health Service when the National Health Service are turning around and saying they haven't got the money to and the resources to? Surely the government should be more responsible and have the trained staff and pay them a decent wage for the equipment which is installed by the National Health Service. But we're now getting to a point where they're paying companies to put their own equipment in and use it. And we got LD Gardening Service says some of it should be private. What part of the NHS should be private when the NHS was set up to be free for everybody? That's an interesting comment, Mr. Dennison. Private companies, in my experience, are more reliable, more accountable, and more efficient, and pay more. Yeah. I think it's a matter of principle for me, to be honest. So anyway, let's put the link out. You don't mind doing some security vetting for us, do you, Bear?
No. And am I not right in saying that you're probably going to get a better service of care for fucking private, going private?
Well, that means that you're paying for it. Not everybody can pay for it. You know? I don't know who Snakes is. I know I've come across Snakes. Snakes, stop flashing. Can't tell if that's your real face or not. I know what I'll do.
You've got a lot of people coming in I've never seen before.
Okay,
put a banner up, bro. Put a banner up.
That's the only way we're going to be able to do this, because don't take this the wrong way, folks. I don't think I've actually spoke to you, Snake.
Yeah, we spoke yesterday.
Did we?
Yeah, or a couple of days ago. Yeah.
On whose channel?
I think Nightmares.
Nightmares. Oh,
yeah, yes, Nightmare Auditor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you. Yes.
Grim's not with it. Grim really isn't with it.
Snark. Hello.
I just wanted to come up and say hi.
Oh, you're welcome. We've had a lot of porn bombers and idiots trying to cause problems. This is the reason why we've got to be so careful. What we wanted to do, we're going to have to work on. But Denison's suggested a few things, so I'm going to do our best to work on that in the next couple of days. Given enough time.
Someone tried to do that in Brooklands yesterday.
Yeah. Well, you understand where we're coming from.
Big G hasn't connected you, man. You'll have to come out and come. Nigel.
Snark, say hello.
Hello.
They got Big G.
And
Big G's
where
here.
Are you from? Where have I seen you from, Snark?
Say again.
Where have I come across you from?
I don't know, Birmingham.
That was a weird coming into StreamYard now.
Well, no, that's you. That's definitely you, Big G. Snark's from Birmingham.
No, you said, where are you from?
Well, I'm not from Birmingham. Where are you from?
Just a guess. I'm from New England.
New England. Whereabouts in New England?
The northeast part.
Sorry, what was that, Bear?
Can you hear me, Greg?
I can hear you.
Ah, right, cool. Weird.
I'm just trying to work out where I've seen Snark. That's all. Because I haven't spoken to Snark that I can remember. But I said that about snakes.
This is brilliant.
It doesn't show up panel though. It's like I'm backstage.
Yeah, let me figure out a few things for a second, because I don't like it when Dennison takes the piss. How you doing, mate?
I'm all right.
And why have you come up with Snark?
Who's that Yorkshire twat on the panel?
Who's saying that?
Outlaw.
Fuck you, outlaw.
That's brilliant.
You big jock.
Right. Let's get this show working properly, or attempt to, in the next 5 minutes before I actually fall asleep. Yeah, so why do you say that the NHS, National Health Service, which is the envy of the world, allegedly, or it used to be, why would you say that it should be privatized, or we should allow private companies in rather than the government run it the way it was?
Because look at your government. Look at your government. Look at how they have been running it. Look what they've done to it.
Yeah, introduce private companies. They're running it into the ground so it can be privatized.
They'll never do it. It's only happened once before, and that was obviously in COVID. But I'm surprised they haven't done it because of the amount of the lists that keep on growing and growing. But you can actually, the government have every right to call a national emergency, and they can actually force to take over the private companies, and actually use their facilities, their equipment,
which are currently installed in the National Health and in the hospitals. And it's they're the ones who are given targets to get through everything. Hey up, guess who's dropped? BBA.
Oh.
Now, my concern is that things like MRI scans are now being done by companies using equipment that was originally installed by the NHS, and we had our own teams of people who were well trained in using the equipment. I mean, I don't know how it works over in the States. I mean, I know you have to pay for everything over there. I don't think there is such a thing as a free health service.
It's expensive in the States, like 3,000 times expensive.
We do subsidize the costs of other countries, though.
Yeah.
But not the UK.
Oh, absolutely.
No, you don't subsidize the cost of care in the UK.
We absolutely do subsidize the cost of medical technology and drugs around the entire world, because Americans are charged more. We also defend the borders of Europe and pay more money into all the global organizations that keep peace in those countries that have the luxury of more social services than the United States has. And when I say we, I mean American consumers.
Yeah. All right. So I would respectfully disagree regarding the UK, because I can't figure out where that would come from within Great Britain, other than American companies winning contracts or being awarded contracts to run certain aspects of the National Health Service, because we're too lazy to put the money in to employ the same people and use the equipment which we may have bought from an American company. I mean, yeah, you're right about the drugs, by the way. I still blame a certain American company for 2 years of hell. And as for a state of an emergency, I believe that if we're very close, if we haven't already, handed over the right to declare a national emergency over to them on the basis of, oh, you might get the flu or something like that, because they're now the world leaders in how to put people in little boxes.
I don't know much about the NHS, to be honest. Like, I'm not familiar a lot, I'll be honest.
Well, the NHS was set up after the Second World War to be able to provide free treatment to everybody, and you paid a weekly amount of tax, if you want, national insurance, which was originally designed to pay for the National Health Service.
I see.
But it doesn't quite work that way now, because they say that the national insurance is to pay for your pension and your taxes pay for the National Health Service. And during over a 2-year period, all of a sudden, the government found money to put up extra beds, just in case there was a pandemic or a national emergency and loads of people invaded the National Health Service and they needed treatment, which never actually happened. But the money was made available, and the National Health Service is actually now broken down into regions, and each region is competing for more and more money to run the services, which is one of the reasons why it's been put out to tender, and private companies have been awarded the care or the use of providing, or providing the service to members of the public free of charge, but they're not accountable other than to the big bosses in the local trust. And I will agree with what Denison says, because one of the things which I have noticed is that a lot of the companies are pharmaceutical, such as Alliance. So I'm a little bit, on the book. I see where you're coming from, Denison. I just think that there's too much influence on the private sector, on the NHS.
I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, with the NHS, how does the health insurance work? Does everyone get like the same health insurance, or is it different?
We don't have health insurance. If you want health insurance, you would take that out with a private provider such as Bupa, and then you have the choice to go to Bupa, who turn around and say that they've got their turnaround for treatments is quicker because they use the same consultants that are in the NHS. So they're working privately for a company and working for the NHS because we've allowed it to happen.
I see. Oh, Greg's in the chat. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Greg. Sorry, I will come back to the chat shortly.
It's one of the only industries in health. I fucking hate this, by the way. Where we allow doctors, talk about conflict of interests. We allow doctors, NHS doctors, we allow them to work in private sector also, as well as working as NHS doctors.
Yep.
So one of the biggest cons and the biggest scams going.
Well, give
why
me
is that a scam?
Because
it's got pure conflict of interest. I could go to an NHS and say, let's say I've got a fucking ailment, and they turn around to me and say, "Oh, it's going to be 6 months for that ailment to sort it all out. You need this operation. It's going to take 6 months to have that op." But then they'll turn around to you in other breath and say, "Well, I actually work as with Bupa as well, and I can actually get this done in a week for you." Why should I have to wait 6 months on the NHS when that same doctor can actually sort it out within a week, but under Bupa?
Don't you
I
think
don't think we
that's
should.
red tape and availability?
Well, why should, in my eyes, a doctor should always concentrate on, should only ever have one employer.
Are you thinking that if they didn't, that the private companies didn't exist, then you wouldn't have to wait 6 months with the NHS? It would.
Correct, because he is sharing his workload with another company. So his main priority should be the NHS.
Has
not
there
the
ever been a
private.
time when there wasn't private companies allowed in the NHS and doctors weren't allowed to work for both?
Yes, there was.
And
Yes.
the waiting times then didn't exist?
The waiting times were what they call acceptable. There was a lot shorter waiting times for serious ailments for starters. And now what they do is they pass the book and treat you as soon as possible as an outpatient. And you are referred 9 times out of 10 to a company that deals with that type of issue that the patient has. Because the NHS claim they can't afford to offer those services, so they put out to tender for a private company to do it. I mean, I don't care whether the private company is from the US or whether they're from Canada or whether they're from Zimbabwe or wherever. It makes no difference to me. It's a principle. I believe that everyone should be entitled to free health and that waiting lists should be drastically cut so you get through quickly or quicker. Hello, Gregory. Sorry, I brought you up and didn't get a chance to say hi to you.
How you guys doing today?
Hi, Greg.
How you doing?
Hi.
Oh, just
So
fine.
the wait times have been made longer by private companies.
Yeah, well, if you think of it from a doctor's point of view, you get paid one salary in the NHS, you get probably paid double that in the private sector. So he's going to obviously try and do more work in the private sector because he's going to get paid more money. It's a pure conflict of interest. So he might work for the NHS 3 days a week, or 2 days a week, and he might work for the private sector 3 days a week.
Someone's background is lagging.
Wouldn't the solution then be to pay the doctors more through the NHS? And why doesn't it work both ways? Why are the wait times not increased in the private sector by the fact that doctors have to share their time with the NHS?
Because not everybody can afford to pay insurance premiums.
Yeah, if we increase the NHS salary for doctors, which they already are on a pretty penny, it will, the NHS would have to go up significantly. The NHS.
Or there might be less money left over for Israel and Ukraine.
Yeah, it would have to be seriously go up. I just don't think that they should allow this job sharing type thing. It's complete conflict of interest.
Yeah, I think it's Gregory.
Like I say, if we had the doctor 5 days a week, obviously we're going to get through those waiting lists quicker.
I gotta head out. I just wanted to say hi. Love you all.
Yeah, no
Brad,
worries. Thanks very much for
Brad.
coming on up. Now I remember you. I remember the voice. That's what it is.
Yeah, Trex guy,
Um,
remember?
So yeah, thanks for coming over.
Yes, yeah.
My original idea didn't quite work, so it's just one of those things. But we'll work on it and we'll get it sorted. So thanks very much. I really do appreciate it and your support. Gregory, for some reason, your mic was making a lot of noise in the background. Maybe a fan or something that's
How about now?
the mic catching up. That's a lot better. It's gone.
Because I set on my YouTube. That's why.
Ah, there we go. Sound bleeding makes sense.
So, how many days a week are the doctors available for the NHS now?
Well,
but it depends on doctor to doctor or what
it's
the
the consultants who work for both the private sector and the NHS. We have a shortage of consultants' hours as a result, which creates the backlog of people waiting for treatment to see a consultant, because they'll only work so many hours for the NHS, and the government has allowed it for years and years and years, and that's what's caused the problem, to be honest.
Yeah. And to be fair to government, they've also tried to encourage them to come back over to the NHS by giving them tax breaks on the pensions and stuff like that, or and giving them basically an increased pension. You got to think, when it comes down to doctors, I'm not trying to bash doctors over the head here. They're on six-figure salaries. They're on 200K a year. When they work in the private sector, obviously they'll be on 400K or whatever. It's just pure greed, and the people that are suffering for that pure greed is the public.
Jesus, they make more than doctors here. NHS doctor gets paid $200,000 a year.
Yeah, depending on what specialism that they're in.
We're talking of consultants, not the run-of-the-mill doctors that are on wards, etc. We're talking about the, if you like, the doctors' bosses.
The surgeons. You basically
surgeons. I mean, I'll give you a classic example. I'm not saying that this is the situation, because I don't know the actual consultants personally, but my wife has a lot of stomach issues. She has chronic pancreatitis, and she's under a consultant, but the waiting time for her to see the consultant is roughly now 9 months for her to have a face-to-face, unless she's admitted to hospital and it's classed as an urgent medical case, which it is at the moment, and he's been forced, if you like, to move other patients to bump them so that he has the time to look at what's going on with my wife.
So basically, you have to be on death's door to get a consultant seen to you in the NHS. Otherwise, you're on a waiting list. And this is happening for cancer patients. This is happening for cancer patients as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is one of the biggest problems that I've got. There you go. Let's have it.
And that guy makes $200,000 a year?
200,000
well, in dollars in terms, it's probably more, mate. It's probably on $250,000, because you've got to think we're paying him in English pounds. So if he's on 200 grand a year, it's probably around about 20% extra in dollars on top of that.
They also, the consultants also retire from the NHS early at the first opportunity. They get their NHS pension and continue working for the private sector, which if they are retired, they shouldn't be, and they're not working for somebody else. That's fine. Give them the pension. But if they're working for another company, don't give them the pension. Put the money back into the NHS.
Yeah.
Because they're still getting somewhere in the region of about 50,000 a year, probably on a pension.
Yeah, like I said, this is what really boils my piss. When when we had the strikes for over the nurses and over the junior doctors, I was all for that because they get paid absolutely fuck all compared
They
to.
get pittance.
But your top consultants and top doctors, they get paid an absolute freaking fortune, and they get everything chucked at them, and every single benefit possible. Like I say, the government even changed the rules of the pensions and tax to allow them to get more money.
So what they ended up doing was decreasing the amount of hours that they actually work for the NHS so that they can then work for more money from the private sector. I'll give you an example, Dennison. Alliance, massive pharmaceutical company, right? Or one of the things that they do is pharmaceuticals. And they've now got the contract in the local hospitals for MRI scans. But they turn around, and this is what I don't get. As an outpatient, you will be seen quicker. You will get your scan quicker than you would do if you're an inpatient. So while you're still on the ward and you've not been discharged, you will stay there until they can fit you in around an outpatient appointment. That costs the NHS a hell of a lot of money, and it's cheaper to treat people as an outpatient than it is as an inpatient, obviously. But you're keeping a bed. So why not, if you're an inpatient, you get the same speed as an outpatient and have more people or more of these MRI machines, for want of a better expression, because I don't know what they're called, installed. And where my wife is, they've got 2 MRI units. Both are operated by private companies.
And just a perfect example to show you how fucked it is, Denison. In Northern Ireland, because obviously we have in Great Britain we have devolutions. So basically England controls the pot, and we give certain pot sizes to each nation: Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland, the waiting list on some of the cancer lists is 5 years,
which is ridiculous.
So what they're essentially doing, they're forcing people in a way to move over to private, because obviously you want to be seen within quicker than 5 years. So they're actually forcing the public over to private, even though that they can't probably afford it. They're putting all the life savings into that private medical insurance just to get seen for cancer. So they're kind of like pushing people or forcing them into the private sector. And I know this because I've worked in health for over 20 years.
We are getting more and more like the US in the way that we're being told, oh, yeah, if you got insurance, fine, no problem. But here's a good one for you. A pre-existing condition, you are not going to get insurance for because they won't treat it. You have to go back to the NHS.
Is there any information on historical wait times?
Oh, yeah, it'll be on national statistics. Everything will go on to the UK's national statistics in terms of wait times. I think it will be listed under the terminology of RTT, which is somewhat time to treatment. Or referral to treatment.
Yeah. I mean, even going into it, I'll give you a classic example, right? If you have an accident and you go into you would call it ER or ED. We've moved now to the American phrase and we call it accidents and emergency department now. They have a 4-hour turnaround that a patient has to be from when they book in to when they get seen by a doctor or discharged. I think it's discharged from there now. Then they moved the goalposts again. The problem that what they do is they don't admit you anywhere. You just are treated, and if you're able to sit, you're put in a cubicle with 3 or 4 other people or more, because since COVID, they haven't taken the screens down, so they can get, I think it's 12 people in the equivalent of 2 cubicles where they had 2 beds. But you're not admitted into the hospital because you're still classed as being treated or being treated while you're waiting for a doctor to come and see you who has got 200 other people to see, depending on how busy they get.
Yeah. And then also putting his time down by working over in private sector. So this is another cause for bed issues, bed blockages. There's an argument as well for, especially with old people, that the social care doesn't integrate properly with the NHS, and this is why it's under one roof now, to try and smooth that out. But there's also an argument that doctors, when they're starting to work for the NHS and also working for a private sector, is that it keeps patients in the hospital longer, because obviously they're working less days.
Yeah.
And the doctors that are actually treating them have to sign them off to be discharged. So that's also a bed blockage.
But it's not the doctors who go around treating the patients. It's, as I say, it's the next level up. Now, Outlaws puts something there, which we used to have what we call matrons who would run a ward or 2 wards. Right, and that ward would have up to 30, 40 beds with patients, and they would arrange for the right amount of nurses to cover. And nurses did it because they actually they loved the work, they loved what they did. They didn't do it for the pay. Now a nurse can go to a private company, register as a bank nurse, and get paid twice the amount of money in the same ward, right, rather than working for the NHS.
Yeah, and that's that. Just want to say that is so true. The amount of nurses, that have switched to contracting. I knew a nurse; she was getting paid £200 a day. Compared to a nurse's salary, I think it's around about 40 or 50k a year. If they're on £200 a day, that's 5 days a week. That's £1,000 a week, £4,000 a month. Some are even on higher than that. A lot higher than that because the contracting. We employ quite a lot of contractors now in these industries,
and it's to me, it's just a waste of money. We're throwing good money after bad, and then when the government turn around and say, "Yes, we know there's a problem, and we're doing our best to resolve it," well, you know, they're lying, don't you? You know, skills. What's this? Anne-Marie, you put in. Skills can put things into place. Hang on, give me 2 seconds because a certain conversation is going on here. Yeah, I'll see it better now. Schools can put things into place in the classroom to help for a EHCP plan. Not sure what that stands for. They need the diagnosis on paper. Right, so if a child has got medical issues, they want it on paper. The only people who can actually give that diagnosis is someone who is qualified, and the people who are qualified are consultants, and the consultants are working for other companies. And I just think it's wrong. Overall, as I say, I've seen nurse. I mean, I was talking to a nurse the days ago, and they're looking for another job because they're no longer enjoying the job, because they have, it's like time management, how long it takes you to do X, Y, and Z, but don't take into account that some patients are easier to manage, if you like, because they're self-managing, whereas other patients aren't able to in certain areas, because they're either elderly or they have other underlying issues which affects the way that they interact with people.
Well, that's what the government. That's what your
Oh,
government blames for the increased wait times. They say that the
yes.
UK population is aging, and that people are sicker than they were 10 or 20 years ago. That there's
Yes.
a lack of general practitioners, and that the demand on social services has increased.
But they don't put more money in. For a general practitioner to be able to go out into the community and practice being a doctor, it takes 7 years. But they don't learn, they learn the skills, not the interaction. A nurse who's on a ward learns both. And then when a doctor comes in, the nurses are treated like a piece of garbage. It's a catch-22 for the nurses. And some of the nurses will actually stand up for themselves and turn around to a doctor who just ignores them and just, will turn around and say, "Don't you really think that's rude?" The nurse is supposed to listen to the patient. The patient relays it, what their condition is and how they how they've been treated, what the medication is. Then they they relay that information to the doctors, who then go around and just double check and then screw about with patients' medication in order to get the right formula, which
I'm not run about the NHS here, but this is why also people get pissed off about immigration, because we're accepting all these people in. We can't handle the current population, and yet we're accepting thousands upon thousands more people in, which will require these services: NHS, schools, housing, the lot. And this is why
even more of those services.
Exactly, and this is why people get pissed off regarding the immigration side of things, because we're already
from people from war-torn, impoverished countries with famine problems that have.
Oh yeah, I'm all willing to accept
illness and nutritional issues than the average UK citizen.
Yeah, I'm just willing to accept legal immigrants.
I'm going to put the link back out in case there's somebody else who wants to come up and have a say, because there's quite a lot of chat going, and I don't want to distract from what's going on the panel. It's rare that I do this. I've not heard Big G be so serious about something, and I want to give him plenty of scope,
Well, I know because I deal with all the data to do with this shit, mate, and it's this is what I see.
Yeah.
And this is what I know some of the problems are. Sorry, I don't work for the NHS, by the way. I work for a private side of things.
But you still see the data coming across.
But I still see the data. I still see the data. Northern Ireland is on its ass at the moment. Out of all the Great Britain's nations, I wouldn't like to live in Northern Ireland now if you needed medical care.
And
I mean,
in your
yeah.
opinion, that's because of the privatization.
Privatization, not of like buildings or whatever. Privatization in terms of allowing staff to become contractors, essentially. So, like I say, if you are a contractor, you go. It's natural instinct as being a contractor. You go where the biggest money is, don't you?
Well, let's dive into that then. Obviously, they are allowing that because people are not incentivized to work for the NHS. The shortage of doctors and equipment is probably the biggest problem. So, what would you do to get more GPs to work for the NHS and to stop them?
The reason why we allow it to happen is because I need to stop saying doctors. Consultants have got the government over a barrel, basically because this is why they eased up on allowing them to do it, because we don't have enough new doctors coming through the system to replace them. So we obviously want to keep these doctors, to keep the NHS working. So they've said, oh yeah, okay, we'll allow you this, we will allow you to go working in private sector to allow yourself to gain more money. But it's a catch-22. Yes, you're keeping that doctor, but you're just shortening the hours that he's got to work in the NHS, because obviously he's going to work more of his hours in the private sector because it's for his own benefit.
Right. So how do you stop that?
Well, I would literally just say, you're in my opinion, the NHS needs complete reform, and I would start contracting in the NHS. You either work for the NHS or you don't.
So then, so there's your answer, though. Don't you think they're going to pick don't? They're going to pick the latter of those two.
There's only going to be a certain amount of positions in the private sector, though, isn't there?
I'd say even now,
people,
there's enough, according to your logic, there's enough now to where the NHS isn't working.
But if you stop that, though, and say, and did that, there'll be, in the short term, yes, there could be a bit of a problem. But once you've got caught back up with the work, the private sector will then suffer, because people will be like, well, I don't need this private medical insurance. The NHS now is back to where it was, so I can go get it for free.
My question is, how do you get those nurses and general practitioners to give up money? They give up less hours, less work, and more pay to take on more hours, more work, less gratitude, and less pay. How are you going to get them to do that?
Jensen, it's not the general practitioners that are going to the private sector. It's the consultants.
Well, that's what it's referred to by your government. That the acute problem in waiting times is by GPs, because the rate of consultations has grown faster than the population.
Well, the general practitioner works in a surgery. And we're referring to people who are working in hospitals where they've already been referred by a GP. They have a serious medical emergency as a result of whatever the underlying issue is that they've been referred to. And the only way they're going to get to see a consultant in a short space of time, or one of the doctors who works under directly under a consultant is to be admitted as an inpatient. So you have to wait until you're seriously ill before you can get that help and that support. Because the waiting list to see the same doctors, if you like, as an outpatient is longer. I mean, if it's going to take a cancer patient to see a consultant or the consultant's understudies, if you like, for up to 5 years, well, if you're knocking on death's door, it's a bit late then. Because the cancer may have got that bad, it's not treatable. So you end up with palliative care. I've seen in the last 2 weeks since my wife has been in hospital, I have seen nurses dedicated to, if you like, the old-fashioned ethics of nursing, right? And making sure that the patients are comfortable and in this particular area are as pain-free as possible, right? But then you got the doctors who are going, let's play about with the medicine and see whether or not we can change the medicine so that they're not on such strong painkillers, because for somebody who's on such strong painkillers, that could cause problems, for argument's sake, with their intestines and with their bowels, etc., right? But they can't go on to something else because they're on another type of medication that if you make changes to is going to cause serious issues with the other medication, which has been prescribed by a consultant in that field, and they know that that is the right treatment to keep them stable and to continue living in the community, rather than, for arguments, if it's mental health, having to be referred to a psych ward, for argument's sake, right? It's mind-blowing the way that it is, and Outlaw is perfectly correct. It's not one thing, it's a multiple of things. But the issue is the targets which are put on the hospitals and on the NHS trusts, because as I say, we're now regionalised, and the same targets are for argument's sake, for a rural area is the same as it is for inner city. But you go by what's on the rural area because that's quicker. So the inner cities, where there's lots of people and lots of illness, lots of poverty, etc., their targets are that the local hospitals are dealing with them. It's exactly the same as it is if you were living out in the country. It's ridiculous, you know.
Yeah, I think like say solve it. It's not going to. It's a complex thing to solve. But like I said right at the start, I'm very surprised that the government don't do this. But I can probably understand why they don't do it. Is because of the amount of money it would reduce in the private sector. But the actual nation could actually the government could call national emergency. Like we are in a state of war. So let's say there was World War III and whatnot. The government can actually force the private sector and say, you are all now at NHS hospitals.
Okay, Bumblebee. You need to put headphones in because you're on an Android device and it's going to create serious sound echoes. Have you got headphones in? If you have, can you just confirm in the private chat for us, because otherwise it's going to cause problems for everybody else as well. Thanks.
Don't get me wrong, the government would still have to pay them But the government has every right to basically say we will pay you exactly the same as any other NHS hospital or whatever.
Good evening,
But
everyone.
like I say, the private sector won't like that, and big pharma won't like that, and big pharma is basically running the governments over here.
Good evening, Bumblebee. Long time no see. How are you?
Yeah. Challenging, but
Okay.
hoping things will go turn around. I've got some input on what's being said, and some of you are aware that I spent 8 weeks in hospital. 7 of those weeks I was fit for discharge.
You were
And
fit
I
for
was held
discharge.
up. Yes, I was fit for discharge. So what I went in with was an emergency. Was partly neglect of a GP as well. And my condition worsened. And I got blue lighted into hospital. Got treated in A&E and then told that I'd be kept in. And I went to a geriatric ward at the age of 50. The staff didn't understand my condition of chronic fatigue syndrome stroke ME, and I had to try and guide them. When physio came after some x-rays, they didn't understand my condition, and I actually told them to go and look at a web page. And then they started working with me to an appropriate plan. And I was bedbound, and in 8 weeks of being in hospital with physiotherapy several times a week, I went from being bedbound to standing. Now, I worked hard at my own recovery when I didn't have the support. But there's a lot being said here. Now, I saw staff nurses not just running the ward, managing the ward, just like your old matron did. Okay. I worked in the 90s in the NHS as an ambulance woman. If we had any problems, we went to the matron, it was sorted. Nowadays, you see ambulance crews don't get listened to in that when they come on a ward. I've watched some horrific attitudes of staff. I've watched some staff that have got hearts of gold, and they're there for their patients. They're not there for the money. There is some staff that are there for the money. Somebody was saying about, so I was saying in the chat, and I think it was Outlaw, about the pay. Okay. Now, I happened to talk to an agency nurse about 2 years ago on one of my missions, and she explained that agency was on 2.5 times what an NHS trust nurse would be on, and they chose their shifts. Then there was bank nurses that, if the regular shifts wasn't covered, that NHS hospital or NHS trust had so many bank nurses. So say you had a bank nurse that was a mum that could only work certain times because of the kids, then they would put down what they would be available for, and anything that fell in that remit they would be offered. But quite often agencies covered a lot of the shifts. Now, just like, was it Outlaw that said it? GY Trucker. If they got rid of the agency nurses, and those nurses ended up having to work for the trusts, the NHS trusts, there would be a massive saving and continuity of standard of care, in my opinion. And I've been in hospital quite a bit in the last few years.
Yeah, like I said, totally agree with you. It's all to do with, like I say, when it comes down to the health service, morality of something. I'm not saying all of staff. Morality and greed has taken over.
Yeah.
There's less morality, sorry, and greed and increased greed by people that go over to contracting.
I would
or
also
consulting.
say, yeah, I'd also add that through no fault of the staff who work on wards and look after patients, they
Yeah.
They're
are
beautiful.
time managed, and they're managed by managers in some cases. And the best managers, in my opinion, are those that have actually done the job and
Definitely.
fight the
Lived
corner of,
experience of the work.
yeah, but they fight the corner of their nurses on the ward.
Yes.
They're the best ones. They're very similar to the old matrons.
Mhm.
And you feared matron.
Yeah.
Even the doctors feared matron. Now it's, oh, well, I'll refer that to my manager, for my manager to talk to your manager about X, Y, or Z. And
But
it's the patients that are losing out
yeah.
because the
I've lost a
continuity
hell
of
of a lot of
care
trust
isn't
in the
there.
NHS. I've lost a hell of a lot of trust in the NHS. I left hospital
That's
on a serious. I left hospital in February on a serious safeguarding, and I had nowhere to go. I checked into a hotel and registered as homeless. And that safeguarding went on for 8 days and 8 nights and was making me ill. And I'd been sat fit for discharge for 7 weeks.
yeah.
And in that 7 weeks, they claim, and I've seen my medical notes, and I think it's quite amusing. They claim I had flu because I had a very high temperature one day. I've looked back and I've seen that one of my medications, if it was increased, could cause that. I'd like to look at the dates. And I recently saw on the app or some medical notes that they claim I had pneumonia. I didn't even have a cough. I reckon
Well,
there were some standards that because I'd been
yeah.
on that ward so long, they needed to like shift me sideways somewhere. Because I was just sat there. Yes, I was getting physiotherapy 3 times a week. Yes, I was making progress. And I was also educating nurses. Some nurses never dealt with a wheelchair. And when I said, oh, can you do this for me? Some nurses were great, some weren't. And like when I trained in the NHS into the ambulance service in the 90s, okay, nurses were totally different then. Nurses didn't just do like the theory work, they also did the practical. They even came out on ambulances with us sometimes if they were in A&E. And some of the nurses were so dedicated to their job and dedicated to treating the patient as a person and a human being with needs. Now, quite often, if you've got somebody on a ward pressing a call bell because they need help for the toilet, they sit there waiting 25 minutes. Then you've got a wet bed.
Why do you think that is?
Lack of staff. Is that Denzen?
Yes.
Or is that Big G? Hi, Denzen. We have spoke before. I
Hello.
think it's lack of staff. And let's just say that I was on an 8-bed ward at the end of last year, start this year, okay? My 8-week stay. And at one stage, I was at 1 HCA left to 8 of us.
I wouldn't just blame it on lack of staff as well. I would say that people's work ethic as well has completely changed in the NHS.
But is
Yes,
that
In the
maybe because
definitely.
they're overworked and underpaid, though?
Yeah.
A lot of it,
that
yes.
could be one argument, but I just think this day and age, after Generation X, they're all freaking silver spoon people, mate, that expect life to them on a plate, and they'll just go for the easy. So
I
I
hear that
would
accusation a
would
lot
disagree
about
with
this
that.
younger generation, but It's one of the first ones worldwide to do worse off than their parents. They have less job opportunities, less education, less money, more war, more poverty, more crime. Everything in every westernized country is, going to pot. And these kids are being told how spoiled they are and entitled they are when they have less than even people from my generation had, never mind the generation previous, the boomers as they're called.
I would agree to a certain extent with that. I mean, I'll give you an example. I've come across somebody who does 1 day a week in college, right,
Yep.
which is paid for through
What
the
level of
NHS.
staff is this? Is this
Sorry?
nurse, doctor? Is this a nurse or a doctor?
This is I'm just explaining.
Okay.
Right, so they do 1 day a week in college to learn the theory of caring, etc., and the job which they're ultimately going to end up as a fully qualified nurse, right?
Okay.
And they spend 4 days a week on the ward, being taught by experienced nurses.
Yeah.
And they work alongside that particular nurse, and I will call them a nurse because nurse is about caring for people, right? That's what a nurse is. They are somebody who's dedicated to improve somebody's health in the easiest and the best way possible for the patient, and the patient comes first, not the wage slip, not the amount of time it takes to sort things out for them, etc. Oh, you've only got 5 minutes, 10 minutes to do a drug round or what? You with me?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This particular nurse is learning literally from the ground up, and they're a very good nurse.
Mhm.
You know, they interact with the patients in a positive way. They just don't have any negativity whatsoever. Yeah, I've also seen and heard nurses who have been in fully qualified. They've got up, they've worked their way up the ladder to whatever uniform that they're in, and they do very little. Or they think of an excuse or a reason, or they turn around to a patient and say, "Yep, I'll get back to you in a couple of minutes," and then 4 hours later, they're still waiting for pain relief. You know, and then they turn around and they say, "Well, it says on here I can't tick that box, and because I can't tick that box, you can't have X, Y, or Z."
Oh yeah. Best, not the best, the worst time that came along for me about medication, on my last day was I needed a nurse to prescribe meds. That nurse was not only working my ward, she was working another ward and managing as well. I had to wait 4 hours for my pain relief, and then I couldn't work with physio.
Yep.
Uh,
As I
and
say,
they're being overworked. And when I've actually seen student nurses doing jobs that nurses should be doing, and being there for 8 weeks, you interact with staff, you're like, oh, how's your training going, and things like that. And they say they're first year, second year, third year. And you know, you're sat there thinking, how come you're doing that as a first year? But you can't question it. And if like a nurse came along and said, are you okay if the student observes? I'm like, yeah, fine. When you say about the pain relief as well, I did experience back in 2000. I had an operation, I needed a dressing. It was a very painful area of the body with a lot of nerves. And it was a deep wound that they had to pack and dress. And they gave me paracetamol at 10 o'clock. and they decided to do the dressing at 4 p.m. When the doctor came round the next day with all his medical students looking up to him, he was horrified when I told him that you're not going to pack that wound again. I'd rather you break every bone in my body. They actually had to keep me in hospital for a week after the surgery when I should have been out in 2 days. And that was in 2000.
Don't think that I've been sugarcoating anything, to be honest.
Who said sugarcoating?
As I say, I've seen some fantastic nurses recently,
Yeah, there are.
and are dedicated. And I don't think they're in it for the money, but I do think that the NHS is becoming the equivalent of a business and is being run like a business. Yes, I understand that you've got to have things which add up, and the amount of money which is available. Yeah, that all makes perfect sense to me. You know, you've got to have your accounts put in order, etc. But sometimes, surely, patient care is more important than the facts and figures.
What do you mean by that, though? Like a business? What's the difference between running
time
it like a
management.
business and whatever the alternative is?
Time management and cheaper equipment and things like that, Denson. Like, our number one in the ambulance service was definitely patient care. Safety, patient care. Yeah. If a piece of equipment broke and it was going to cost like a couple of £1,000, it wasn't we would get cheaper one at £1,000 because we were trained on that couple of £1,000 piece of equipment, and things do break, things do get lost. You leave splints on patients at hospital, and you're supposed to get them back from A&E. If you've gone out of your area, nobody from your station might go to that A&E for a week.
So why are they pinching pennies?
They're pinching pennies because they've got too much management. That's how I see it. They keep employing these diversity managers, other managers to manage managers that manage.
So they have administrative bloat. Their overhead, too much cost is going into paper pushers and not enough into care.
There's not enough staff on the floor. There's not enough staff treating patients.
Wouldn't you think that's a consequence of regulation?
I'd say it's a mixture.
That when there was one healthcare assistant who is not medically trained, and the standard was she was at was like healthcare assistants were what we had, nursing auxiliaries back in the 90s. They can do patient care, personal care, if that makes sense, Denson, like bedpans, urine bottles, help feed someone, maybe help wash somebody.
The nitty-gritty of caring for sick people.
Yeah, and to actually see that HCA was left to 8 patients for about 4 hours, like, I'm sorry, but that was a breach.
I mean, that's down to staffing levels and not having enough nurses. I just want to pick up on something which you put there, Denison. I'm not having a go at the nurses and the amount of money which they're paid, because it depends on which area, for starters, and their level of expertise. Because some nurses specialize in certain types of care, and not every nurse goes into that. So I'm not having to go at. I'm saying that nurses are underpaid and undervalued in exactly the same way as I would say that care assistants are, or whatever label you want to put on it. That do the basics, shall we say? Right.
I agree with you.
Nurses used to do it one time in the past. Now they've got a different layer in. They work for a ward in a hospital to to gel, you all have to work as a team. Right? If you have a nurse or anybody who goes in and doesn't pull their weight, doesn't support the other staff, especially with, if you've only got 2 members of staff on overnight, for argument's sake, when it is, theoretically, it's a lot quieter. You haven't got the same the same amount of things to do, but every single nurse has to, the higher up they get, the more paperwork they have to do, or the more administrative stuff, which takes them away from the caring. But then when they come back and they've done that, you wouldn't know the pressure which they've been under, some of them, because they just don't show it, because they believe in what they're doing is the right thing. It's like a vocation, if you like, a personal vocation to look after people. But when you've got the pen pushers, the paper pushers, the time management, destroying the confidence of a nurse that's been been there for, say, 5 or more years, after they've done the training, they're qualified, and they're looking for something else in life because they can't do it. They want to, but they've just been destroyed by time and motion, for want of a better expression. And I mean, where does it, there aren't enough nurses, but there's not enough youngsters coming through wanting to do nursing, because they see what it's like, and I don't want to do that because of all the problems. Same with GPs. There's a shortage of GPs, general practice doctors, going out into the community, going and learning the art, the skill of being a general practitioner, a doctor in the community. What happens to, I mean, at one time you used to have what was called house doctors. They had wards, if you like, or areas that they would just treat those areas. Now you don't have them. Now a patient can see 3 or 4 different doctors because they rotate the doctors. So it becomes impossible to get that consistency, that continuity of your treatment. Patients tend to say, now they see a doctor for a week and the following week they see somebody else. I've come across people who've been in hospital for 3 or more months, and they can't go home. They can't do it. They can't do what they, they're still ill, but their treatment is long term. Right? But they'll see different doctors, and all a doctor sees is what's in black and white, what's been written down, or what's been put on the patient's notes. And then they make a diagnosis based on that, or they follow the treatment that they had before, but they don't necessarily listen to what the patient is telling them about their condition. It's a doctor may know about the condition, but they've not lived through it. So the patient is more.
That some nurses don't report things correctly, and I experienced that about 2 years ago. I was on believe it or not, an escalation ward full of geriatrics. There was another young lass there with me, so at least I had somebody to talk to that had, that was sane. And I couldn't get from my wheelchair to the bed. I didn't have a way of transferring, and the arm of the wheelchair comes off. Okay, and I was getting distressed on the ward, so I managed to throw myself in the wheelchair, not in a safe manner. Okay, it was unsafe. I shouldn't have done it, but I was being goaded on the ward. I'm also have post-traumatic stress disorder, and that was starting to spiral. And I need to get outside, have a cigarette, and calm down. And I tried to, postpone going out, but it got to the point that another nurse decided to stick her oar in as well and make the situation worse. And I managed to get in my wheelchair. And then when I came back, a nurse reported that I transfer safely. What I did was took the arm of the wheelchair off, and 1 minute I was sat upright, next minute the side of my body, I was alongside the bed, the side of my torso and my hip was on the bed. I had just flopped sideways and asked the nurse to lift my legs up. Because they misreported, I had a fight for 2 weeks to try and get physiotherapy, and I bumped into physiotherapy in the corridor, and I had to inquire why they kept declining me. And they said, a nurse says you transfer safely. I said, would you call this safely? When I explained it, and she went, no, not by any means. And she said, we're coming to you tomorrow. Now, if I hadn't have bumped into that physiotherapist in the hallway for the ward, I wouldn't have got physiotherapy because of misreporting in notes. Now, whether that was skill, whether that was, the lack of skill, whether it was judgment or whatever, I don't know.
So how do you incentivize more honest, competent, and
You need more experienced people and further trained. Some
how do
staff are not
you get
trained
that?
well
How
enough.
do you incentivize more
Incentivize it.
experienced? Yeah, because
I guess
there aren't enough,
guess
right?
that you
That's what
pay
everybody
them.
agrees on.
Yeah, and when I went to school and came out of school, a few of my schoolmates did go into nursing. And to my knowledge, there was a bursary. Like when you go to university, Grim helped me out on this one. There was a bursary which was like a grant. Are you there, Grim?
Yeah,
No.
I'm still here.
Okay, so is it called a bursary? And it would include
Bursary,
accommodation.
yeah.
And that I know that when I was in college, there was apprenticeships to go into as nurses. You had to have certain qualifications, and there was apprenticeships to go in to get your training, and your work experience, and then to become a nurse. There is still bursary grants for med and nursing students. Now, there isn't. I don't believe there's apprenticeships anymore, and I believe that children don't leave school at 16. They have to stay into education for a few more years unless they get an apprenticeship. Is that right? Whoever's on panel? They stay to about 18, don't they?
I think it depends on the local area education authority, but people are being encouraged to go into apprenticeships, but there aren't that many that are available. What is on offer, which is what I was sort of trying to allude to earlier, is if somebody wants to go into nursing, if they hit the criteria, then they will get support through their local area health authority or health trust, through the NHS. As I say, they learn on the job. They go to and they learn the theory in college, etc. And they get paid. I won't say the full amount because that would be unfair. But they get paid the salary, and then once they qualify, they will get obviously more money down the line. But I can remember when apprentices were offered in different areas, and the apprenticeship always got the worst possible jobs going, and they didn't really learn as much as they do now, because there are tight regulations around it for companies to be able to offer apprenticeships. I just want to pick up on what Outlaw said. It's not just a shortage of GPs. Yeah, I'm talking about the 7 years it takes to become a GP. There is also a booming industry, for want of a better expression, of building houses, and they don't put the infrastructure in place for the new communities that they're building. So you have to
100%
travel.
agree, Grim.
So they're actually aiming these communities at people who have transportation, because there's no transportation links in. The government are more concerned about ensuring that people have access to broadband. Why? Because they can book all their appointments online, and they can. The NHS has brought out their own app. You could do everything on there, providing you surrender information to your GP so that they can cross-reference your personal information over to there. And that's what it's all about, ensuring that, I mean, I can see it to a certain extent and I can understand it. I just don't agree with it. If a GP can,
or social
with me a
services
sec.
sell those
Yeah.
details.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say was, if I put out go to the GP and they issue me with a prescription, they issue me with the old-fashioned sick notes now called a fit note. You're not fit to work, you are fit to work, sort of thing. Yeah. They know who I am, so why can't they link my doctor's notes, my surgery notes, over to the NHS? After all, they share the information with the GP, and they don't ask me to prove who I am. It's bureaucracy gone mad, just for the sake of it.
To answer your question, though, Denison, and I'll try and strip this back, and I'll be quite as blunt as possible, because this is really annoys me. You asked if how to make it more interesting and get people actually to be more nurses. So what's happened now is that people see these types of jobs as difficult jobs, and they'd rather, some people, and this is what I was meaning earlier about the new generation. Some people just rather live off benefits, mate, rather than get a job. Use like fruit pickers, for example.
So are you saying your solution is to take benefits away so that people are forced into these jobs that they're already doing?
I think the nation's become fucking lazy, if I put it bluntly.
Yeah.
The nation's become pissing lazy, and they don't want a job. You know what I mean? And they don't want to do certain jobs, And this is what I was meaning by people. The new generation wants everything given to them on a silver plate. Instead of working from the bottom up, they want to become straight into the top end of a field.
Yeah, I don't think that there's I think it's a false dichotomy to suggest that your choices are to be lazy and do nothing, as opposed to working 80 hours a week cleaning up somebody else's piss and shit for $25,000 a year, while politicians make closer to $90,000 a year to give away the money that their parents earned to other countries to pay for bombs and missiles and.
Yeah, I do agree with what you say, Denison. My concern is that it's the way that children are brought up in schools or taught in schools is dictated to by the government. Parents will bring children up to the best of their ability, but some parents don't have the skills. Some do, right? To be able to do that, so that a child is level-headed. But not all children have got the ability to grasp the importance of work and why it's important to stand up on your own 2 feet, which is something which as I'm saying, I agree with both of you because for different reasons. So yes, you're both right. I won't
I have an
say that you're both
entirely different
wrong.
perspective on that. I think people are exploited. There's far too much emphasis put on employment and the importance of working for somebody else to make them rich at the cost of your own relationships and your health. People
Oh
work
yeah,
too
yeah.
much, they work
Well,
too many hours, they work too many days of the week, and work too many days out of the year. And it's all to feed into a system that's exploiting us worldwide. That being
yeah,
said,
but
that being said, if the problem is that people are just too lazy and their parents aren't teaching them the value of work, then what is your solution then? How do you fix the problem of not having enough GPs and nurses if the cause is not that they're paid too little, they're being taken advantage of, they're being over administrated, overworked, and left out of the decision making process? If it's simply because they're just too lazy, then what solution do you propose in order to make people less lazy
okay,
and less greedy?
right. So let's just clarify a few things. We have what's known as the Working Time Directive, one of the few things which we've still got. In order for you to, you have to opt out of that, and the maximum amount of hours you can work now without agreeing to opt out is 48, with the exception of junior doctors who are expected to work 60 plus hours per week, and you still get the same amount of pay if they were to do 48, right? They do it
They
because
do
of a
on call, don't they?
vocation. Sorry?
They have to do on call and overnight calls and things like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what the dispute was about, if you like, between the government and the junior doctors because of the extra hours which they had to work for no extra pay. I don't know what I can't give you a solution because I think it's a mixture. I don't agree that it's laziness. I don't agree with that. I just think that it's
You are joking.
society.
Staff morale
Is-
in the NHS is low, okay, because they're pushed and pushed, and there's not enough colleagues to do the work.
Guys,
So
I've just realised how long I've been going. This was meant to only be a short live, and I've gone into into the second hour. I need to get some sleep. For those who don't, let me finish, please, Big G. For those who don't know, I'm currently visiting my wife 3 times a day in the hospital, and it's taken its toll. Because of the problems associated with and the reasons why she's in the hospital. So I do need to try and get some sleep and some rest. So I am going to cut it short. I'm sorry, Snakes, I'm not been able to get you up on panel a second time. Don't take it the wrong way. It's only because I'm so tired. I didn't.
I know I'm only winding you up, Grim.
I know you are. I know you are. That's the reason why I say. There are some people who aren't aware of it. So
Grim,
I am
hope
cutting
your
it short.
missus makes an improvement.
So do
Okay.
I, if we can get
And I
things
hope
right.
you look after yourself as well.
Well, I've only got 4 cats and a dog to look after. I'm lucky.
So you're a
They
carer.
look after themselves.
I know
Okay,
you're a
then, so,
carer anyway. Yeah.
yeah.
Can I just
Anyway,
say that nobody mentioned the ambulance service and paramedics are going for their degree. Yeah. They don't get any assistance whilst they're going for their degree. When I spoke to a paramedic, he actually said that he was having to work 35 hours a week alongside doing his degree full time. And I
yeah.
turned around and said, why you run yourself into the ground.
But that's where vocation comes
Yeah.
in.
Oh yeah,
And I
it
think
was
that's
different
the
my days.
Yeah, I don't think people have got the same vocation. It's a different generation, which is linking in with what Big G says. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining in. It was as I say, it's turned into longer than I expected. I do apologise for cutting it so short. I've got to get some sleep.
I wish I had seen.
All right,
earlier.
Grim, get your head down,
Good night,
Gramps.
Grim.
Take care.
I
Thank
shall
you for
see
letting
you
me
all
on.
again. And next time, if we can get Discord sorted out, we'll all be over in Discord, and it'll make things a damn sight easier because we can have more people as well, and everyone will get a chance to hopefully have a say. It might
Let
be
me know
total
if you need
chaos,
help.
but I don't know.
Grim,
Denison
stop.
may do, but I know I can get hold of you. That's the important thing. But thanks very much, and appreciate your support. We agree to
Grim, drop me a
disagree on
message
things
in.
at times.
Sorry,
I'll
Grim,
put
drop me
my
a message
Discord
in.
link in the chat.
Yeah. I'll. If you want to do that now before I close it down,
Mhm.
and then I can close it down knowing that it's there, and as long as you don't refresh, you'll be able to get it. All right, folks.
Grim, send me a message next time you're go live in Discord. I'm still in Discord, okay?
Yeah,
I ended up
no
with two
problem.
groups with your name, so I was confused. Yeah.
Good to see
You're
you both again.
confused. I'm always confused these days.
It's
Right.
not actually in as a link, digital Denson. It's not blue, like a link that you can click on.
Maybe because I didn't put it in YouTube.
It might just be easier for people if it was a link.
Oh, that's interesting. It's not working as a link.
Right.
Can
Give
you
me
do
a
it, Grim?
second. Probably. Give me a sec. It's there, so I should be able to copy it.
I think I can fix that.
Well, it should do because
I can fix it. It's
you're
because
a
it's
mod,
not
so-
recognizing the domain.
Right.
I can
Okay.
fix that here.
Fantastic.
Big G says, hope your missus has a speedy recovery, Grim.
That
There you
should
go.
work.
It's working now.
Right. Got it.
Go over to Denison's Discord. I'm all for building connections and networking, as most people have come to realise. I want to say thanks to BBA for helping us out earlier. He's always a star. We'll get all this sorted. And the nice thing is, once we do get Discord sorted out and working, it means that when we end on YouTube, you can go over to Discord and just carry on discussing it. You don't have to worry about terms of service. And I just want to say thanks to everybody who has stayed within YouTube's wonderful terms of service this week. Thank you very much. Network show hopefully will be back out on Monday. So I'm hoping to get that all sorted. I will, if I'm doing things, sorting things out, it will be after 9 o'clock before I make a start, because by the time I get back from the hospital and have something to eat, it's going to be getting on for 9 o'clock. But I'll start it, not necessarily end it early. All right then, guys. Thanks very much. Cheers now. Take care.
The government loves you.
Bye. Bye.
Always.
Take care,
Bye.
everyone.